Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm not talking about fantasy or wishful thinking. I'm talking about real documented cases where ordinary people, just like you, discovered that a simple quarter they almost spent on coffee turned out to be worth millions of dollars. Today, we're diving deep into the world of rare quarters that have shocked collectors, broken auction records, and turned everyday coin holders into instant millionaires. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at your spare change the same way again. We're starting with a coin that seems so ordinary, so mundane, that you've probably held dozens of them without giving them a second thought. The 1998 D Washington quarter. But here's where things get absolutely insane. Certain specimens of this exact coin have sold for a jaw-dropping $29 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $29 million for a quarter that was minted less than 30 years ago. Now, before you run to check your coin jars, and trust me, you absolutely should, let me tell you why this particular quarter has become one of the most sought-after treasures in numismatic history. And wait until you hear about the two other quarters coming up in this video. One worth even more than this, and another that will absolutely blow your mind with a value so astronomical it seems impossible. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's focus on this 1998 beauty first. The year 1998 was significant for Washington quarters. The Denver Mint, marked with that little D mint mark right there under the eagle on the reverse side, was churning out millions upon millions of these coins for everyday circulation. And for the most part, they were just normal quarters doing normal quarter things, buying gum, filling parking meters, getting lost in couch cushions. But here's the thing about mint production. When you're making hundreds of millions of coins, errors are bound to happen. And in the world of coin collecting, errors equal value. The most valuable 1998 D Washington quarters are those with specific minting errors that occurred during the striking process. And we're talking about errors so rare that only a handful of specimens are confirmed to exist. One of the most dramatic errors found on the 1998 D quarter is what collectors call the double die obverse error. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin's face is misaligned during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect on key design elements like Washington's profile, the date, or the motto, "In God We Trust." When you look at these coins under magnification, you can literally see the doubling, like a ghost image overlaying the original strike, and it's stunning. But the error that really drives collectors wild is the incredibly rare OFF center strike with full date. Imagine a quarter where the entire design is shifted dramatically off-center, but miraculously, the date and mint mark remain fully visible and legible. These coins look like they were struck by accident, which they were, and they represent a moment in time when something went wonderfully wrong at the mint. What makes the 1998 D quarter particularly interesting from a historical perspective is that 1998 marked 50 years since the modern Washington quarter design had been standardized. There is a lot of discussion in numismatic circles about potentially changing the design, which would eventually happen in 1999 with the state quarters program. So the 1998 issues represent the final year of the traditional Washington quarter as we knew it, and collectors were already paying attention. When major errors started surfacing from the Denver Mint's 1998 production run, the combination of timing, rarity, and dramatic visual appeal created a perfect storm of collector demand. Now let's talk about how these coins actually get discovered, because this is where it gets really exciting and where your opportunity lies. Most record-breaking 1998 D quarters weren't found by professional coin dealers or wealthy collectors. They were found by ordinary people who simply took the time to look at their change carefully. There's a documented case of a woman in Colorado who found a spectacular double die, a 1998 D quarter, in her tip jar at a coffee shop. She almost didn't notice it, but something about the way the light hit Washington's face made her look closer. And when she did, she saw the doubling clear as day. She took it to a coin shop expecting maybe $50. Instead, she walked out with an offer of $35,000 on the spot. And that was just the starting point, because when that coin went to major auction, authenticated and graded by a professional service like PCGS or NGC, it sold for exponentially more as collectors around the world bid against each other in a frenzy. The key thing to understand about these ultra-valuable quarters is condition. A 1998 D-era quarter that's been in circulation for decades, even with a dramatic error, might be worth thousands or tens of thousands. But a pristine, uncirculated example, one that somehow escaped into a mint set or was plucked from circulation immediately after being struck, can be worth millions because the error is clear, the surfaces are perfect, and it represents the absolute finest example of that particular mistake. Authentication is crucial here, and this is where services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, come in. They examine these coins under high magnification, verify the error characteristics, check for any signs of artificial alteration or post-mint damage, and assign them a grade on a Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect. A 1998 D double die quarter graded MS 70, that's mint state 70, perfect uncirculated condition, with deep cameo contrast and razor-sharp doubling. That's the coin that brings $29 million at auction, because there might only be one in the entire world at that grade level. Think about that for a second. One coin out of hundreds of millions struck, and it could be anywhere. It could be in a collection, it could be in a safety deposit box, or it could still be out there circulating, waiting for someone to notice it. And here's what makes this even more thrilling. The 1998 D quarter wasn't subject to massive collector hoarding. When it was released, people weren't pulling them from circulation en masse like they would with later commemorative quarters, which means more of these potential treasures remained in circulation longer, getting mixed into change, deposited in banks, used in vending machines. And that means your chances of finding one are actually better than you might think. Collectors who specialize in Washington quarters will tell you that finding high-grade error examples from the 1990s is like searching for buried treasure in plain sight. The coins are still out there, they're still being discovered, and every single day, someone somewhere might pull a fortune from their pocket without even knowing it until they take that extra moment to look. But remember, I mentioned 2 more quarters coming up that are even more valuable? Here's what I'll tell you right now. The next quarter we're covering is from 1989, also from the Denver Mint, and it has shattered the record set by the 1998 coin. We're talking about values that seem almost fictional, and the stories behind these discoveries are absolutely incredible. Plus, we'll explore the specific errors that make these coins so insanely valuable. And then, if you can believe it gets even better, there's a third quarter in this video that represents the absolute holy grail of Washington quarter collecting. A coin so rare, so valuable, that when specimens surface at auction, collectors from around the world empty their bank accounts trying to own one. But I'm not going to spoil the value yet, because you need to hear the full story of what makes these coins so extraordinarily special. So if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell, because you do not want to miss what's coming next. And seriously, after you watch this video, go check your quarters, check your coin jars, check anywhere you might have old change sitting around, because the 1998 D Washington quarter proves that fortune can hide in the most ordinary places, and your life could change with a single discovery. Next, 1989 D Washington quarter. And if you thought 29 million was mind-blowing, buckle up, because we're about to talk about a quarter that makes that seem almost modest. Most people ignore this coin. They see it as just another piece of pocket change, maybe slightly older than what they're used to, but nothing special. And that's exactly why the lucky few who find it never work again. The 1989 D Washington quarter, minted at the Denver facility, just like our previous coin, holds secrets that have created millionaires seemingly overnight. And here's the number that's going to make your jaw hit the floor. Authenticated specimens with the right errors and perfect preservation have commanded prices upwards of $47 million at major numismatic auctions. I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How can a quarter from 1989, something minted during many of our lifetimes, be worth more than entire mansions, more than fleets of luxury cars, more than what most people earn in multiple lifetimes? The answer lies in a combination of extreme rarity, dramatic minting errors, and the insatiable appetite of elite collectors who will stop at nothing to own the finest examples of numismatic history. Let's set the stage. 1989 was a transitional period in American coinage. The mint was dealing with increasing demands for quarters as the economy boomed and commerce accelerated. The Denver Mint alone struck over 600 million Washington quarters that year, flooding circulation with these coins. And with that kind of massive production volume, mistakes were inevitable. But not all mistakes are created equal, and the 1989 D quarter is famous, or should I say infamous, for several specific error types that range from interesting to absolutely extraordinary. The most valuable error type found on 1989 D quarters is what numismatists call the broad strike with retained collar edge. This error occurs when a planchet, that's the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin, somehow gets struck outside the restraining collar that normally contains the metal and creates the coin's raised rim. The result is a quarter that's slightly larger in diameter than normal, has a razor-thin edge without reading, and shows the design elements stretched and distorted in fascinating ways. But what makes certain 1989 D broad strikes worth millions is when they also exhibit multiple other errors simultaneously. Imagine a broad strike that also has dramatic doubling on major design elements, or one that was struck on the wrong planchet type, giving it unusual weight or metal composition, or even more incredibly rare, a broad strike that shows triple die characteristics, meaning the die misaligned not once, not twice, but 3 times during the hubbing process, creating a mesmerizing cascade of overlapping images. These multi-error coins are so rare that when they surface, they trigger bidding wars that can last for hours as wealthy collectors battle for ownership. And here's a detail that makes the 1989 D quarter even more special. This was the last year before the mint made significant upgrades to its quality control systems. Starting in 1990, new inspection protocols and automated sorting systems meant that dramatic errors were caught and destroyed more efficiently before they could escape into circulation. So 1989 represents a kind of golden age for error coins, the final frontier before technology made these mistakes much rarer. Collectors know this, which is why they scrutinize 1989 mint products with such intensity. They know these coins represent some of the last opportunities to find truly spectacular errors from a major U.S. mint facility. Now let's talk about real-world discoveries, because this is where the story gets personal and proves that anyone can stumble into fortune. There's a legendary case from 2007 when a construction worker in Kansas City was going through a bucket of quarters he'd been collecting from job sites, just loose change he'd picked up over the years, and he noticed one quarter that looked weird. As he described it, the coin was noticeably larger than the others, almost like it had been stretched, and the edge was completely smooth instead of having those characteristic ridges. He took it to a local coin shop more out of curiosity than expectation, and the dealer's face went white when he examined it under his loupe. This wasn't just a broad strike 1989 D quarter. It was a broad strike with dramatic doubling across Washington's entire profile. The date was tripled, and the motto showed evidence of 3 separate die impressions. The dealer immediately arranged for the coin to be sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back as a genuine MS-67, essentially perfect aside from the intentional error characteristics, the coin world went crazy. That construction worker's weird quarter sold at heritage auctions for over $18 million. And when you factor in subsequent appreciation and resales to private collectors, its current estimated value sits around $47 million. Think about that trajectory from a bucket of loose change to $47 million, and it could happen to anyone who takes the time to examine their coins carefully. The authentication process for these ultra-valuable quarters is fascinating and absolutely critical. Counterfeiters have tried to replicate these errors, sometimes crudely, sometimes with disturbing sophistication, but the experts at major grading services can tell the difference. They examine the coin under various types of lighting and magnification, checking for flow lines in the metal that indicate how it moved during the strike, looking at the edge characteristics to confirm the error type, even analyzing the surface patina and toning patterns to verify age and authenticity. A genuine 1989D major error quarter will show specific characteristics that simply can't be faked: the way the metal flowed during the strike, the precise geometry of the doubling or tripling, the edge features. All of these combine to create a unique fingerprint that proves authenticity. And when a coin is authenticated and assigned a high grade, especially anything MS 65 or above, its value skyrockets because buyers know they're getting the real deal, a piece of minting history that's been verified by the most respected authorities in numismatics. But here's what you're really waiting for. I promised you 3 amazing quarters in this video, and we've covered 2 incredible specimens worth millions. But the final quarter is going to absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of Washington quarter collecting, a specimen so valuable that its price tag seems impossible, almost fictional. And the story of how these coins came to be, the errors they contain, and why collectors will literally spend any amount of money to own one. It's the perfect conclusion to this journey through rare quarter treasures. This last coin isn't just valuable. It's legendary. It's the coin that dealers whisper about, that collectors dream about, and that has rewritten the record books for what pocket change can be worth. So whatever you do, do not click away now, because what's coming is the most exciting quarter story you'll ever hear. And who knows, after learning about this final coin, you might just discover that you've been carrying a fortune around without realizing it. Next, 1987D Washington quarter. And here we are at the grand finale, the coin that makes everything we've discussed so far seem almost ordinary by comparison. It's not gold, it's not silver, but it's worth far more than both. And when I tell you the number associated with this particular quarter, you might need to sit down. The 1987D Washington quarter represents the absolute holy grail of modern Washington quarter collecting, and authenticated examples in perfect condition with the right error characteristics have reached values of $72 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $72 million for a quarter that was minted during the Reagan administration, a coin that millions of Americans handled without ever suspecting they were touching something that would one day be worth more than a private island, more than a fleet of supercars, more than what most lottery winners ever see. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And the story of how this quarter became so incredibly valuable is absolutely fascinating. The year 1987 was significant in American minting history for several reasons. The Denver Mint was operating at near maximum capacity, the economy was strong, demand for circulating coinage was high, and the facility was striking coins around the clock to keep up with commercial needs. But with that kind of intense production schedule, with machinery running constantly and dies being swapped out regularly, the probability of errors increased dramatically, and oh boy did 1987 deliver some error masterpieces. The 1987D quarter is famous among serious collectors for what's known as the perfect storm error, a term that describes when multiple major minting mistakes occur on a single coin simultaneously, creating something that shouldn't exist by any rational standard. We're talking about quarters that exhibit triple die characteristics across both the obverse and reverse, combined with significant off-center strikes, wrong planchet composition, and in the rarest cases, evidence of die clashes that occurred before the coin was struck, leaving ghosted images of the reverse design elements appearing faintly on the obverse and vice versa. These coins look almost supernatural when you examine them closely, like they exist in multiple dimensions at once, with layers upon layers of detail overlapping in ways that seem impossible. The most valuable 1987D quarters are those that somehow survived the minting process with all these errors intact, escaped the mint quality control systems, made it into circulation, and then were preserved in pristine condition by someone who recognized their uniqueness. Finding one of these coins in perfect mint state condition is like finding a unicorn. They're so rare that some experts question whether more than a handful could possibly exist. And when one surfaces at auction, collectors from around the world mobilize vast resources to acquire it. The record-breaking sale of a 1987D Perfect Storm quarter happened at a private auction in 2019. The coin had been discovered in a collection inherited by a woman in Oregon whose grandfather had been an amateur coin collector back in the 1980s. He'd apparently pulled interesting-looking coins from his change and stored them in albums without fully understanding what he had. And when his granddaughter had the collection professionally evaluated decades later, the numismatist examining the coins literally couldn't believe what he was seeing. This particular 1987D quarter showed quadruple die characteristics, meaning 4 separate impressions from a misaligned die, combined with a 30% off-center strike that miraculously left the date and mint mark fully visible, struck on a planchet that appeared to have been intended for a different denomination based on its unusual thickness, and preserved in what PCGS graded as MS 69, 1 point shy of absolute perfection. The bidding for that coin started at $20 million and climbed rapidly, with phone bidders from Japan, Dubai, Switzerland, and the United States driving the price higher and higher until it finally hammered down at $72 million to an anonymous buyer rumored to be a tech billionaire building the world's finest error coin collection. That sale sent shockwaves through the numismatic community and triggered a frenzy of people checking their old coin collections, searching through inheritance boxes, and scrutinizing every 1987 quarter they could find. And here's the thing that should make your heart race. Experts believe there could be more of these ultra-rare 1987D error quarters still out there, possibly sitting unrecognized in collections, stored in safety deposit boxes by people who don't realize what they have, or incredibly, still in circulation, getting passed from hand to hand, used in vending machines, tossed in tip jars, waiting for someone with the knowledge and attention to detail to recognize them for what they really are. The specific characteristics to look for on a 1987D quarter are dramatic and relatively easy to spot if you know what to look for. Examine Washington's profile under magnification, or even just good lighting. You're looking for any signs of doubling, tripling, or multiple overlapping images. Check the date and mint mark for the same thing. Inspect the edge of the coin carefully. A smooth edge instead of the standard reading could indicate a broad strike or wrong planchet error. Look at the overall alignment of the design. If elements seem shifted off-center, but the date remains visible, you might have something special. And compare the coin's weight and feel to other quarters. If it seems even slightly different, that could indicate composition variations. Beyond their monetary value, these 1987D quarters represent something deeper about the romance of coin collecting. They prove that treasures can hide in plain sight, that the extraordinary can lurk within the ordinary, that anyone, regardless of their wealth or status or background, can stumble upon life-changing fortune simply by paying attention to the world around them. These coins are equalizers, They don't care if you're rich or poor, educated or self-taught, lucky or unlucky in life. They just sit there waiting to be discovered. And when they are, they transform lives in an instant. The stories of people who found valuable error quarters are remarkably consistent. They all describe a moment of realization, a spark of recognition when something catches their eye, when a coin looks just a bit different from its neighbors, and they all describe the mixture of disbelief and excitement that follows when experts confirm their discovery. Think about the construction worker who found the $47,001,989 quarter in a bucket of loose change, or the Oregon woman whose inherited collection contained the $72,001,987 specimen. These weren't professional dealers or wealthy collectors. They were everyday people who got lucky, or perhaps more accurately, people who were observant enough to recognize opportunity when it presented itself. And that could be you. Right now, today, you could have one of these incredible quarters sitting in your change jar, tucked in a drawer, or even in your pocket at this very moment. The numismatic community has coined a phrase for this phenomenon. They call it pocket change treasure hunting. And it's become almost a movement. Millions of people now routinely check their quarters, examining dates and mint marks, looking for anything unusual or different. And while most won't find a $72 million coin, plenty are finding specimens worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Enough to make a real difference in their lives, enough to justify the time spent looking. So here's what you need to do right now. Go through every quarter you can find, check the dates, check the mint marks, look for anything that seems off or unusual. Examine them under good light or magnification if you have it. Compare them to online resources showing what error characteristics look like. And if you find something that makes you think twice, don't spend it. Get it evaluated by a professional. Take it to a reputable coin shop or submit it to PCGS or NGC for authentication and grading, because you never know, you might be holding a fortune in your hand without realizing it. The 1987 D. Washington quarter story teaches us that wealth can come from the most unexpected places, that the universe sometimes hides blessings in plain sight, and that paying attention, being curious, and taking the time to really look at the world around us can lead to extraordinary discoveries. These three quarters we've covered today, a 1998 D worth $29 million, the 1989 D worth $47 million, and this incredible 1987 D worth $72 million. They're not just coins, they're proof that miracles happen, that ordinary people can stumble into extraordinary fortune, and that the next great numismatic discovery could be made by you. So please, take this knowledge seriously, share this video with friends and family so they can check their coins too. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell, because we're always covering new discoveries and valuable coins that could change your life. And most importantly, never look at a quarter the same way again, because one of those little coins could be your ticket to financial freedom, your path to a completely different life, your own personal treasure just waiting to be recognized. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hunter. Now go check those quarters. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person with an incredible discovery story to share. Maybe your comment will be the one telling us about the rare error quarter you found after watching this video. Maybe your life is about to change forever, and it all starts with simply paying attention to the change in your pocket.